This young man could not have imagined that just because he had accepted to pawn a camera, it would put him in trouble with someone else's criminal law. When the young man woke up, he saw blood all around him. Next to him was the body of a girl with multiple stab wounds in her abdomen. Before the young man could understand what was happening, he was surrounded and arrested by the police. The young man was desperate because if he went to jail, he would not be able to get a bone marrow transplant for his dying daughter. Could he clear his name in time to save his daughter from death? The young man's name was Tae San. He was a gangster whose time had passed. Tae San could only make a living by working as a gigolo for rich people and opening a small pawn shop. The money he earned was enough for him to eat 3 meals a day and pay rent with his best friend Ko-man. The girl who was a regular customer at the pawn shop was named Mi-suk. Mi-suk was beautiful, so she was recruited to work as a waitress at Salt Bar. Mi-suk was also lucky to be noticed by the boss. Returning to Tae San, he thought he would live this life until he was buried. But one fine day, his ex-girlfriend came to him and said that Tae San had a child. This made Tae San confused. Going back to the past 8 years ago, his ex-girlfriend, In-hai, was pregnant. However, because he was still at the age of playing around, Tae San forced her to have an abortion. Although In-hai cried and begged, he still decided to give up the baby. In the end, In-hai had to give birth and raise the baby alone. However, In-hai's daughter had acute leukemia. The baby needed to find someone with compatible bone marrow to transplant in order to save her life. Although In-hye was the baby's mother, her bone marrow was not compatible. There was no other way, so Mi-suk could only go to Tae San. When Tae San heard that he had a daughter and was terminally ill, Tae San was extremely confused. But In-hai only begged Tae San to give her bone marrow. She did not want him to take back her daughter because In-hai thought that Tae San was not worthy of being a father. Then In-hai returned to the hospital where police officer Sung-woo accompanied her to take care of her daughter. Police officer Sung-woo had liked In-hai for a long time, but In-hai was no longer interested in love anymore. She only thought about her daughter. Little Soo-jin was now 8 years old. She was very active and lovely. Soo-jin also knew that she was about to leave this world, so she invited her friends in the hospital to play soccer. Soo-jin did not want to cause trouble, but she understood that her time was running out, so Soo-jin wanted to do what she liked, so that when she left, she would have no regrets. That shows how precious life is to many people. In another scene, the woman in pink is named Congresswoman Seo-hee. She lives a simple and friendly life, so she is very popular with the people. They elect Seo-hee as the city mayor in the upcoming election, but Seo-hee refuses, saying that she will only hold an auction of ancient treasures. The money earned will be used for charity, and then she will withdraw from politics. This woman looks very elegant and graceful, but in fact, it is just a fake image that Seo-hee created. Behind that perfect mask is a real old fox. Seo-hee cooperates with Chairman So to sell fake antiques, then will take the charity money for herself. While the two foxes are discussing work, Mr. Sok's lover appears. Mi-suk knows that she should not look too much, so she quickly goes out. But Mi-suk's identity is not that simple. Inside the room where the congressman and the chairman sat was a hidden camera. It turned out that it was an insider for Inspector Kyung. Mi-suk has been investigating the congresswoman and Chairman Sok for a long time. Inspector Kyung and Mi-suk worked together to expose these two foxes and put them in jail. Back to Tae San. When he was young, Tae San abandoned his child, but now that he is a grown man, Tae San cannot ignore his daughter's illness, so Tae San quickly went to the hospital to get a blood test to see if it is compatible. While waiting for the results, In-hye sent Tae San away because she did not want him to see his daughter, but God arranged for the father and daughter to meet when a ball suddenly rolled to Tae San's feet. A clear voice caught his attention. The first time they saw each other, Tae San had a very special feeling for the girl. Tae San gave the ball to her when Soo-jin suddenly called him father. Hearing that call, Tae San suddenly froze. Is this his daughter? Out of self-consciousness for abandoning his child, Tae San ran away. Soo-jin did not stop smiling. She still followed Tae San. She did not blame her father for leaving her, but just wanted to see him. Tae San turned around and heard Soo-jin calling him dad. Finally, the two of them arrived at the amusement park. Soo-jin also gave Tae San a teddy bear that she liked the most. That handshake was like a miracle appearing in Tae San's ordinary life. It gave him a sense of responsibility. As a father, Soo-jin recognized her father because she saw and secretly hid the photo of her mother and father. Tae San met his daughter for the first time, making his cold heart feel like it was filled with magical power. That is the power of fatherly love. At the same time, Mi-suk was suspected by President So, so he sent someone to follow her. When she discovered that someone was following her, she immediately ran into the house to check Gmail, but did not receive a response. Mi-suk called the police station and found out that Kyung had gone on on a business trip. What was more dangerous was that Mi-suk's conversation was overheard by the people in the car, who identified her as a spy. A few days later, the bone marrow test results came back. Tae San's bone marrow matched his daughter's, meaning that she had a chance of being saved. In Hye quickly called her ex-boyfriend to tell him the news, and both were extremely happy for their daughter. At that moment, they were grateful to each other. While Tae San was preparing to go to the hospital, Mi-suk appeared again. Mi-suk quickly gave Tae San the camera. Mi-suk knew that the pawn shop would be a safe place to hide the evidence, but because he was in a hurry, Tae San just stuffed the camera into his pocket, then ran home to change clothes to go to the hospital. His roommate saw the camera and thought it was Tae San's, so Ko-man borrowed it to take pictures of his girlfriend tomorrow. When Tae San arrived at the hospital, the doctor told him that 2 weeks would be the right time for a bone marrow transplant. During that time, Tae San had to protect himself to ensure the best bone marrow supply for his daughter. After leaving the clinic, Tae San promised in Hye that he would be at his daughter's hospital room 2 weeks later. On the way back, Tae San was in a very good mood. While Tae San was looking at Sujin's gift, the pawn shop's juniors called and told him to go to the old warehouse to find the watch that the customer wanted to redeem. Tae San was surprised but still did as asked. Tae San searched there for half an hour but couldn't find anything, so he had to return to the pawn shop. Tae San was about to teach his juniors a lesson when they said Mi-suk called him to her house because of an urgent matter. Tae San was in a good mood, so he had to ignore the watch and agree to go to Mi-suk's house. As soon as he left, the two juniors looked at each other with evil intentions. Sure enough, when Tae San entered Mi-suk's house, he was beaten unconscious. When he woke up, he found himself lying in a pool of blood, holding a knife in his hand next to Mi-suk's body. Tae San was scared and didn't know what was happening when two policemen rushed in. They pushed him to the floor and handcuffed him on the spot. With a scene like this, it would be difficult for 10 mouths to escape the crime. At the hospital, little Sujin was still enjoying the joy of being able to live. Again, Sujin excitedly told police officer Song-woo that when she recovered, she would eat all the delicious things in the world. Song-woo also promised Sujin that he would take her to all the amusement parks. At this time, police officer Song-woo received a call from the newspaper about a case that needed him to handle. Coincidentally, it was Tae San's case. At the scene, the forensics were collecting 10 pieces of evidence and fingerprints. Tae San's fingerprints were all over the Yi house. Police officer Song-woo returned to the station to interrogate Tae San. Because Tae San had a criminal record, no matter how hard Tae San tried to clear his name, Song-woo didn't believe him. Tae San said that Tae San returned to the store that day, but unexpectedly, when the police questioned the two people at the store, Song-woo said that Tae San had not returned. Tae San tried to shout and explain that those two were lying. They lured Tae San to Mi-suk's house, so he came. Time of the murder, Tae San was in the warehouse looking for things, but God did not help Tae San because according to the information Song-woo found, that warehouse had been moved last month. Song-woo's partner, who went to investigate, also reported that this warehouse was completely empty and there were no cameras outside. Tae San could not believe his eyes. The evidence was clear before his eyes, so how could he explain it? Who in the world wanted to blame Tae San? Tae San suddenly thought of Chairman Sok. 8 years ago, Tae San was Sok's underling, but Sok didn't see Tae San as a human being. Sok used his girlfriend in Hye to threaten Tae San and put Tae San in jail instead of him, so now it must be Sok who harmed him. It turned out that President Sok was infatuated with Mi-suk, but she was a police spy. Later, from his underling, Sok knew that Mi-suk often went to Tae San's pawn shop and secretly liked Tae San. Jealousy arose in President Sok. To silence the witness and to get revenge, President Sok went to Mi-suk's house and stabbed her many times, then set up a fake crime scene to blame Tae San. After the congresswoman found out about this, she was angry that President Sok took revenge on his own. She thought it was enough to quietly eliminate Mi-suk, but Sok also blamed Tae San, and now this case has been reported. In order to avoid being implicated, the congresswoman ordered Chairman Sok to eliminate Tae San as soon as possible. Tae San knew that he was harmed by that bad guy for the second time, but he didn't know how to explain. Police officer Song-woo waited for Tae San to confess, but Tae San didn't, so they had to send someone to jail. As soon as Tae San left, his ex-wife also came to bring food to her new lover, police officer Song-woo. All of their colleagues knew about their relationship, so they were very happy. Locked in jail, Tae San was extremely worried about his daughter's surgery. Tae San didn't know what to do because the other force was too great. The fingerprint collection results were back, and it proved that the fingerprints were 100% Tae San's. The forensic team also discovered that Tae San tested positive for drugs. Tae San was shocked and lifted his shirt. There was a syringe on his arm. Those bastards had gone this far. Now even if Tae San wanted to deny it, he wouldn't be able to escape punishment. At this time, the police station received another drunk prisoner, but no one expected that he would take advantage of everyone else's drunkenness to approach Tae San that night. Then, he took off his belt and strangled Tae San. Being ambushed, Tae San was caught off guard and was strangled so tightly that he lost his ability to breathe. But the will to survive made Tae San stand up, knock the other guy down, and then punch him. Tae San knew that this guy was sent by Chairman So to kill him. When he was about to be punched unconscious, the police ran in. The bastard immediately acted like he was sleeping when Tae San had a drug craving and beat him up. But the stupid police chose to believe the guy who was punched in the face. Chairman Sok went crazy when he knew that the assassination failed, and the congresswoman was also in a state of anxiety. In another scene, Ko-man and his girlfriend came back from a party. They took a lot of photos on that important camera. Ko-man's girlfriend wanted to own the camera, but Ko-man didn't let her because it belonged to his friend. So the girlfriend had to borrow the camera to develop the photos, and then she would return them. While planning to go out with her girlfriend, Ko-man received a phone call. He immediately ran to the police station, worriedly asking about Tae San's situation. Tae San didn't have a chance to explain much. He just wanted to ask Ko-man for one thing, which was to investigate the relationship between Mi-suk and Chairman Sok. At this time, only Ko-man believed that Tae San was innocent, so he was willing to help him. At the same time, Inspector Kyung had completed his mission abroad and returned to the police station. Kyung received an email from Mi-suk about the meeting between Councillor So-hee and Chairman So. Inspector Kyung didn't know that Mi-suk had been murdered, so he was extremely happy, and Kyung was about to go find the camera. But when she heard her colleague say that there was a letter sent to her with the content, "Sister, I miss you so much," Kyung could no longer smile. That was the distress signal between her and Mi-suk. Something unfortunate happened to that girl. Kyung rushed to the hotel where Mi-suk was staying, but the receptionist said there was no guest by that name. Inspector Kyung had to call her colleague to go to Mi-suk's house to check. After the colleague arrived, she found out that it was the girl who was murdered. Kyung was shocked when she heard this news in the car. Mi-suk and she considered each other as real sisters. She was the one who dragged Mi-suk into this dangerous case, causing a young girl to end her beautiful youth at the most tender age. On this side, because he refused to confess, Tae San was handed over to the prosecution by the police. Soo-jin's mother still didn't know that Tae San had been falsely accused and imprisoned, so the two of them were still happily waiting for the day of their bone marrow transplant. The police car carrying Tae San was on the road. At the same time, Inspector Kyung's car, in a state of grief, sped away in the opposite direction. Inspector Kyung ran a red light, causing a series of traffic collisions, causing the truck to crash into the car that was escorting Tae San and flip over. Everyone in the car also fainted, and frightened passers-by gathered to save people. The scene was extremely chaotic. Luckily, Tae San in the car survived and woke up. Tae San remembered his unsolved grudge and his pitiful daughter, so Tae San quickly took back the teddy bear and escaped. Tae San took the police motorbike, turned the throttle, and escaped from the crowd that was watching. Tae San's mind was filled with Soo-jin. Tae San was determined to live to save the girl. The useless gangster now knew his purpose in life. Inspector Kyung finally went crazy when she rushed into the police station to ask who killed Mi-suk. The police also received a report that the murderer, Tae San, had escaped. When he heard the name Tae San, Inspector Kyung immediately remembered the trial 8 years ago. At that time, her father was the victim. Kyung cried and insisted that Tae San was not the culprit, but Chairman Sok sitting below was the one who beat her father. On this side, Tae San was still rushing on the road. Based on the surveillance camera, the police had also determined Tae San's escape route, so they immediately blocked off the nearest roads and checked the houses. Smart Tae San did not follow the route, the police chief thought. Tae San left his car at the school gate for the two bad students to drive away, and he hid in the truck carrying watermelons. The car just happened to pass by before the police set up a blockade. On the other side, Inspector Kyung ran to beg the section chief to let her take charge of this case. To make him trust her more, Kyung revealed to him the information she had been investigating for the past 8 years about the shady relationship between Assemblywoman So-hee and Chairman So. At this time, those two people were still smiling because they thought that Tae San was charged by the prosecutor and the case would end. But Tae San's juniors ran to report that Tae San had escaped. They knew knew that Inspector Kyung was authorized to direct this case. Hearing that, the congressman was extremely panicked. They knew that Inspector Kyung had a grudge against them, so this case would definitely be troublesome. Back to Tae San. The watermelon truck had arrived at the stall. Tae San immediately jumped out of the truck and ran to the construction materials yard. This place looked safe to hide. At this time, Kyung brought the certificate of authority to direct the investigation to the police station and requested to search the scene. When she arrived, Kyung had to cry because of the brutality. Kyung knew that this case was related to Chairman Seo, but she still understood why Tae San received his order to kill Mi-suk. Holding back her grief, Kyung went to look for the camera, which was the evidence that Mi-suk had exchanged with her life. But no matter how Kyung searched, she couldn't find it. Before Kyung could grieve, the chief of staff called and terminated her right to direct the investigation of this case. Because before that, the congresswoman had gone to the chief prosecutor. She used the excuse that Inspector Kyung was still inexperienced in solving cases to strip Kyung of her authority. After achieving her goal, Congresswoman Seo-hee happily returned to her normal rented house. But the secret was now revealed. Seo-hee went down to the dark and narrow basement. At the end of the passage was a door leading to a luxurious and splendid living place. That was where this woman really lived. In another scene, Koman did not forget his mission. He ran to the bar where Mi-suk used to work to ask her colleagues about the relationship between Mi-suk and Chairman Seo. After getting drunk, Koman knew that Mi-suk was Chairman Seok's lover. Chairman Seok must have killed Mi-suk. While muttering to himself, Koman was stopped by police officer Sung Woo because Sung Woo suspected that Tae San might be looking for this close friend. However, he searched the rented room for a long time but still couldn't find anything. Because they didn't commit any crime, why would they want to find anything? So the police had to issue a wanted notice. Even the sand truck wouldn't let it go. Who could hide in the sand? But Tae San was actually hiding in there. Tae San was very smart when he used a straw to get air, and his body was buried in the sand. After escaping from the police, Tae San came up to breathe air. When the sand truck reached the stop, Tae San also jumped off the truck. He ran for his life on the deserted country road. Luckily, there were no cameras here, so Tae San sneaked into a resident's house to steal a bicycle to escape. Then he ran to the iron cutting workers. Tae San waited for them to fall asleep before sneaking into the warehouse. He turned on the light and plugged it in. Then Tae San turned it off again for fear of being discovered. After a while of fiddling with the machine, Tae San finally figured out how to start it. The handcuffs on his hands were easily cut off. On the other hand, Kyung was tormented by guilt. She sat all night until morning in front of the prosecutor's office. Inspector Dong had to persuade Kyung to stand up and go to the morgue to see Mi-suk's face for the last time. Because of the misunderstanding, Kyung resented Tae San to the core. While holding Mi-suk's dress before she died, Inspector Kyung discovered the camera's pawn bill. It turned out that it had been pawned at Tae San's pawn shop. Kyung quickly brought this news to the section chief, then begged him to let Kyung continue to take charge of this case. Inspector Kyung knelt down and told the mayor about her father being harmed by Chairman Seo 8 years ago. Because of this, she became a prosecutor and investigated Seok to bring them to light soon. The team leader reminded Kyung that if she fought with them, she might die. But Inspector Kyung nodded without fear. Despite his busy work, police officer Sung Woo still took the time to visit Soo Jin and her mother. She also welcomed Uncle Sung Woo very much. Sung Woo liked single mother In-hai and also loved this cheerful girl. When sending Sung Woo home, In-hai asked about the fugitive criminal. In-hai had heard about the brutal murder, but In-hai still did not know that Tae San was the suspect. In-hai also reminded Sung Woo to pay attention to his own safety. At this time, Tae San, after a tiring day of running away, fell asleep in the warehouse without realizing it. Today was also the time when little Soo Jin had to go to the radiation room and have her marrow removed. If Tae San could not clear his name, his daughter would die on the day of surgery because all her marrow had been removed. On the other hand, Kyung ran to the pawn shop to ask her junior, only to find out that Tae San had pawned the camera. Kyung was going crazy. She wondered why her life was related to him like that. Kyung had just come to find the camera when in a faraway place, the chairman was also informed about that camera. Seok suspected that Mi-suk had filmed evidence of his meeting with Seo-hee, so now there were two people who were hunting for that camera, Kyung and Seo. Immediately after that, Seok asked his son, Kim, who developed the photo, to watch out for any cameras sent. Returning to the police station, they had an emergency meeting because they had narrowed down Tae San's hiding place based on reports from people who lost their bicycles and cutting machines. Tae San was still sleeping soundly in the warehouse until noon when he woke up. Outside, a woman chasing chickens woke him up. The police had already gone out to arrest people, but this old woman was still chasing chickens, making it impossible for Tae San to go out. While Tae San was hungry, thirsty, and desperate. The image of his daughter appeared before him, reminding him to live on. Yes, no matter what, Dad had to live on. The people in the village where Tae San was hiding heard the loudspeaker announcing that a wanted criminal was hiding there. The old woman was busy catching chickens and didn't know anything. Tae San was so hungry that he came out of the warehouse and told the old woman that he was lost in the mountains. Then he promised to catch chickens for her. So Tae San had a delicious boiled chicken meal. While he was eating happily with the old woman, the village chief appeared again. Knowing for sure that the village chief had heard and seen the news about his wanted person, Tae San was forced to flee. So the police determined the area of his hiding place and sent troops there. On this side, Chairman Seok's son was also on his way to catch Tae San. Tae San ran away in the forest. The police also rushed into the forest to search. Kim seemed to be more professional than the police. He was taciturn but worked very quickly. The chase between the two sides lasted until late at night. When Tae San was most desperate, suddenly from nowhere, a series of gunshots were fired at the police. Before Tae San could escape, Kim had already restrained him. Kim asked Tae San about Misuk's camera. Tae San suddenly remembered that unfortunate girl. Misuk had indeed sent Tae San the camera. That camera must have been important, so Tae San refused to reveal it. Tae San tried to find an opportunity to escape from the control and struggled with Kim, but it seemed that Kim was stronger and stronger, so he overpowered Tae San. Because he couldn't find the camera, Kim had to deal with Tae San on the spot. Luckily, Tae San took advantage of the opportunity to push Kim down and then ran away. The police couldn't find any clues and went crazy with despair. There were so many people, but they couldn't find a handcuffed criminal. Tae San ran to the cornfield and sneaked into the police car to get a set of clothes. Then Tae San stopped the bus. He successfully asked for a ride. Chairman Seok was extremely angry when he knew that his plan had failed again. Seok turned to target those related to Tae San. So he still didn't know anything. She was still wearing a benevolent face, discussing with her subordinates about the fake exhibition. Tae San had hidden in a house with only a mother and daughter. He tied them up to have a full meal. When he saw the mute mother wanted to protect her daughter, Tae San suddenly understood her worries, so he quickly explained that he was not into lust. Then Tae San threw a towel for the girl to cover her legs. At the police station, they suspected that Tae San had an accomplice because the police had just been suddenly bombed with a homemade bomb. Kyung suspected that Chairman Seok was helping Tae San escape. The police launched a search for each family of the residents under the mountain that night. At home, the mother and daughter showed Tae San where to bathe so that the wound would not get infected. Outside, the police came knocking on the door. Tae San had to restrain the mother so that the daughter could go out and talk to the police. When the girl came in, trembling, Tae San was worried, but the girl was only afraid that her mother would be hurt and believed that Tae San was a good person, so she did not say anything to the police. That night, the mother and daughter still had to let Tae San stay overnight, but they knew he would not harm them, so they slept soundly. When Tae San held the teddy bear his daughter gave him, he suddenly remembered the camera. Wasn't it taken by Koman to go out with his girlfriend? Scene change. After taking care of her daughter, In-hai returned to the store and accidentally heard news about the escaped criminal. The name Tae San was so familiar. When she saw Tae San's image on TV, In-hai was stunned. Her daughter had been taken to the sterile room, and now she couldn't turn back. If left like that, Soo-jin could live for a few more months. But if the bone marrow is removed, Soo-jin will die in 2 weeks if she doesn't have surgery. In-hai broke down and cried, "What should I do with my poor daughter?" At this time, Tae San borrowed the girl's father's suit and glasses. Then he thanked the two people for letting him hide here. Tae San said he didn't kill anyone and would come back to repay them in the future. Tae San is not only handsome, but also reckless. Although Tae San is wanted, when he changes his appearance a little, he dares to appear in public. However, when the bus Tae San is sitting on comes across a police checkpoint checking for suspects, they don't recognize Tae San. Scene change. Inspector Kyung is so angry that he doesn't hesitate to call So-hee. Kyung warns So-hee not to get involved in her case anymore. Kyung will catch Tae San and take the camera because the image in it is enough to convict her. So-hee just found out about the existence of the camera and was very worried. The reason why Kyung Kim did that was to find out if Congresswoman So-hee had the camera. It seemed like So-hee didn't have the camera. So-hee was angry and slapped Chairman Seok. Seok's actions were useless. The camera was still in the hands of his girlfriend Ko-man. It seemed like he would be safe for now. On the police side, Sung-woo had obtained a list of phone numbers that called Tae San the most. Sung-woo discovered In-hai's number. Why did In-hai call this criminal? When Inspector Kyung asked about Tae San's phone call list, police officer Sung-woo lied that he didn't have it yet because he was afraid of implicating In-hai. Indeed, right now, In-hai is very miserable seeing her daughter vomit after each radiation treatment. What will this adorable child do? Suddenly, In-hai received a phone call from Tae San. She hurried to a deserted place to answer the phone. She still misunderstood him as a murderer, so she scolded Tae San as trash. Tae San couldn't explain much. He just hoped she would understand that he didn't kill anyone. Tae San escaped to save his life so he could go get his daughter's bone marrow transplant. If Tae San was in jail, someone would want to kill him. In-hai was extremely suspicious. She cried and begged Tae San to turn himself in because her daughter had been taken to the sterile room to have her bone marrow removed, and now she couldn't wait any longer. Since the police were nearby, Tae San promised to find evidence before turning himself in. Tae San promised to save her daughter before the surgery. At this time, police officer Sung Woo had arrived at the pawn shop. She went to investigate the people related to Tae San. The two juniors immediately said that a few days ago, a girl dressed simply with shoulder-length hair came here. Police officer Sung Woo immediately thought of In-hai's image. So isn't Tae San the one who will transplant bone marrow for In-hai's daughter? Policeman Sung Woo still can't accept this. Sung Woo runs to the hospital to ask of Dame Grace In-hee what kind of relationship she has with Tae San. But when he sees In-hai's tired face, Sung Woo pretends nothing happened and happily comforts her. On the other hand, Tae San has found the bastard who harmed him. Tae San threatens him with a brick. If you don't talk, this brick will break your teeth, causing him to tremble and cry, revealing the name of Chairman So. That guy killed me, Suk, and blamed Tae San, then sent someone to find the camera. So now the key is to get the camera back. Tae San immediately calls his best friend Koman, making an appointment to meet at home tomorrow. But their conversation was bugged by Chairman Seo. But no one expected that it was Koman who ran to tell the police this news. It turns out that police officer Sung Woo promised to clear Tae San's name, so Koman agreed to cooperate with them. Police officer Sung Woo and his subordinates were lying in ambush around the motel. Tae San also approached the house step by step. When Koman entered the house, someone pushed him against the wall. It was Kim. Kim was ordered by Chairman Sok to come here to kill and silence him. Police officer Sung Woo saw that Koman had been in the house for a long time, but still hadn't turned on the lights, so he got out of the car worriedly. At this time, Tae San also entered the house. When Tae San turned on the lights, he saw his friend's body lying on the mill floor. Tae San painfully shouted Koman's name, but this friend had already passed away. More dangerously, behind Tae San, Kim was approaching. Police officer Sung Woo was also lying in ambush outside the door. The lights went out again. Tae San rushed out the door and met police officer Sung Woo. At this time, little Soo-jin still didn't know anything. She was getting a bone marrow transplant every day, and she was looking forward to the day she would see the sunlight again. Meanwhile, Tae San did not have time to explain much. He was forced to run away immediately. Police Sung Woo saw that and chased after him. Sung Woo's colleagues ran into the house and saw Koman's body, so they immediately assumed that Tae San had murdered him. Now Tae San was guilty of more crimes. No one trusted Tae San anymore. Police Sung Woo chased closely behind, but Tae San did not notice. On the shore, Kim was also running after Tae San. Sung Woo had lost track of Tae San, but Kim found Tae San hiding in a sack in the car. When Kim was about to throw away the sack to find Tae San, the driver appeared. At the same time, the police arrived and forced Kim to leave. Seeing that, the police quickly chased after Kim, thanks to which Tae San escaped alive. On the other hand, Inspector Kyung investigated Tae San's ex-girlfriend of 8 years ago, In-hai. After that, Kyung also received news that Tae San killed Koman. At this time, Tae San was sitting in the car, crying miserably for his friend's unjust sacrifice. Because of Tae San, he was implicated. Kim still hadn't forgiven Tae San. Kim drove closely after the truck. Tae San was extremely scared when he discovered Kim. Tae San was afraid that if he lost his life, his daughter would also lose hope. The fear that had accumulated too much turned into anger. Tae San tried to throw things from the car at Kim, but Kim's face remained cold like a pre-programmed killing machine. Two workers got out of the car to check, forcing Kim to retreat, but one of them took a picture of Kim's license plate. Tae San saw that there was no one following him, so he jumped out of the car and ran along the rails. Before leaving, Tae San also brought a small iron bar, so he easily opened the handcuffs. The damn handcuffs finally opened. When Tae San was tired, his daughter appeared beside him, motivating him. He had to live for his daughter. So even in the pouring rain, Tae San still had to drag his heels and walk. Tae San was sitting down to eat an apple when he heard a pregnant woman crying. At first, Tae San thought it was a ghost and was terrified, but when he realized it was a woman about to give birth, he quickly took her home and delivered the baby on the spot. If he went to the hospital now, Tae San would definitely die because he had never delivered a baby before. Tae San was extremely flustered when he saw the woman in so much pain that she wanted to die. Only then did Tae San somewhat understand understand. In-hai's suffering of giving birth alone, In-hai must have hated him very much. But at that time, Tae San was forced to go to jail instead of so he forced In-hai to have an abortion because he was afraid that she would suffer raising the baby alone. When he forced In-hai into the clinic, he was also very miserable. Returning to the present, the woman had given birth to a baby successfully. Holding the newborn baby in his arms, Tae San felt the great value of life. Tae San went outside, looked at his hands, and burst into tears. It turned out that his daughter had been born like that. Back to Inspector Kyung. The angry section chief came to Kyung's house because the case he assigned her to handle had lost another life. When he entered the house, he saw a board full of investigation photos of Congresswoman So-hee and Chairman Sok. Then the team leader understood how great Inspector Kyung's hatred was. Kyung also told him the truth, that when she was in high school, Kyung had good grades, so she was given a scholarship by Mrs. So-hee. In Kyung's eyes, she was a kind and virtuous lawyer. But that night, tragedy struck. Inspector Kyung had to witness her father being killed by Chairman So right before her eyes, but she could do nothing. When Kyung ran to Congresswoman So-hee for help, she found out that she was on the same side as Chairman Sok. When Kyung tried to ask for help, she blamed Kyung for having problems with her eyes. The team leader comforted Inspector Kyung and reminded her that the first thing in this case was to find Tae San. Tae San is the clue. He must not fall into the hands of Chairman So. Because Tae San helped deliver the baby, the woman let him stay at home and eat well. Tae San also did not forget to prepare food for the new mother because her health was still weak. Returning to the police station, the results of the crime scene investigation showed that there were no fingerprints of Tae San on the knife, which meant that it was possible that Tae San did not kill Komon. But because of his hatred for Tae San for abandoning In-hai and her child, police officer Sung Woo insisted that Tae San killed someone and wiped away the fingerprints. At this moment, both Sung Woo and Inspector Kyung received a phone call. Police officer Sung Woo received a phone call from In-hai. Inspector Kyung received a phone call informing him that the girl who was Tae San's ex-girlfriend had been found. That girl happened to be standing in front of the police station, wanting to say something to police officer Sung Woo, but then a colleague ran out shouting that he had found traces of Tae San. Sung Woo heard that and hurried back to the police station, while In-hai was standing outside being followed by others. Not long after, the police arrived at the location where Tae San was believed to be hiding. They cordoned off the area and split up to search. At this time, Tae San still didn't know anything and was helping the pregnant woman wash the baby's clothes. At the same time, the girl in the house also watched the news. Immediately after, the police asked to meet. Seeing Tae San's worried expression, the pregnant woman immediately understood the problem. Tae San was extremely confused and insisted that she was wronged. Although she was very scared, when she saw Tae San still holding the unfinished laundry, she believed that he was a good person. The pregnant woman opened the door and told the police that there was nothing unusual inside the house. Just when the police were having a headache, looking for Tae San, Kyung suddenly remembered the pregnant woman's house. It had been raining heavily in this area these past few days, and since she had just given birth and was alone, how could she hang a rope to ward off evil spirits when it rained? So they hurriedly rushed into the pregnant woman's house, but only found Tae San's blood-stained clothes. At this point, Tae San had already managed to escape. In the forest, the rain was pouring down, making the mountain trail even more slippery, causing Tae San to almost fall off a cliff. Luckily, Tae San held onto a tree trunk and was able to climb back up, but avoiding one danger only brought another. Tae San immediately encountered police officer Sung Woo chasing after him. The tension between the two was tighter than a drawn string. Tae San had now run to the edge of the cliff. Sung Woo pulled out his gun and pointed it directly at Tae San. At that moment, Sung Woo only wanted to shoot Tae San in the leg to stop him from escaping, but Kim, hiding in the corner, shot a rock with a slingshot at Sung Woo's hand, making the shot go off target. Immediately after, a bullet was fired straight into Tae San's chest. Meanwhile, on the other side, little Soo-jin was still full of life, looking forward to the day of her bone marrow transplant, while her father had gradually collapsed and fallen straight into the water in front of Sung Woo's shocked eyes. As Tae San sank deeper into the ocean depths, it was Soo-jin's teddy bear that gave him the strength to rise. Above, both Sung Woo and Kyung took off their jackets and jumped down to look for Tae San. One person wanted to find the camera, the other wanted the bone marrow for Soo-jin. Tae San had been swept away by the strong current. Inspector Kyung surfaced and blamed Sung Woo for not listening to her and for shooting the person holding important evidence. Sung Woo explained that someone had shot a slingshot at his hand, causing the bullet to go off course. Sung Woo asked Inspector Kyung if her insistence on leading the case was because there was another hidden case inside it, but Inspector Kyung did not answer answer. She only requested reinforcements to search for the person who fired the slingshot. Kim was hiding at a higher place, but could hear all their actions through a wiretap. As for Tae San, he had drifted downriver and was saved by a kind old man. This old man is not simple. Although he is deaf and has to use a hearing aid, he has the ability to remove bullets from Tae San's body. The old man also knows that Tae San once took the blame for Chairman Sok in the past. It turns out that 8 years ago, the old man was an enemy of Chairman Sok. Tae San was ordered to block the old man's escape route, but when Tae San got the knife, he did not dare to stab the old man. That is why the old man has lived in seclusion until today, to save his life. Tae San explained to the old man that he did not kill anyone. It was Chairman Sok who framed him. As soon as he heard about Chairman Sok, the old man immediately chased Tae San out because he did not want to be implicated. But when he heard Tae San say that he needed to live to save his daughter's life, the old man changed his mind. At this time, the police had already searched downstream. All vehicles entering and exiting this area were also carefully controlled. Kim also followed closely with the police force. It was only now that Inspector Kyung's teammates were able to investigate and inform her about a girl named In Hye. In Hye was Tae San's ex-girlfriend 8 years ago. Currently, In Hye is the fiancée of police officer Sung Woo. In Hye was looking for Tae San because the two had a child together, and the child needed a bone marrow transplant from Tae San to survive. After a while of searching, the police also found Tae San's bloody shoes and shirt. Returning to the station, they assumed that a person injured and submerged in water for so long must have died. Sung Woo couldn't believe that his hands had killed someone. Kyung was going crazy by the riverbank, screaming Tae San's name. Suddenly, Kyung realized something strange. Why would a person who was about to donate bone marrow to her daughter receive orders to kill someone? Could Tae San be wrongly accused like 8 years ago? On the other hand, the media had been loudly reporting the death of fugitive criminal Tae San. In Hye had also heard the news. She covered her mouth, not daring to cry out loud in front of her daughter. If Tae San died, what would her poor daughter do? At this time, the police were still searching for Tae San's body downstream. Tae San was on a truck that appeared right at the checkpoint, but thanks to his excellent disguise, the police once again let Tae San slip through the net. Back to last night, the old man wanted to chase Tae San away, but then he felt sorry for Tae San's unfortunate fate. So the old man decided to help Tae San one last time. The old man knew he couldn't keep Tae San here for long, so he gave Tae San the truck and told him to go hide in the Philippines. 10 days later, Tae San would come back for a bone marrow transplant for his daughter. But before crossing the border, Tae San risked going to the hospital to visit his daughter. Seeing her weak but still smiling at him, Tae San felt extremely sorry. The girl vomited because of the radiation therapy, but she understood and didn't make a sound. Soo Jin just quietly waved goodbye to her father when her mother pushed her away. Such a good child. How could Tae San abandon his life like before? While In Hye was grieving for her daughter, a ray of hope passed through her life. Tae San called to calm her hanging heart. If Tae San lived, her daughter would live too. Their phone signal was reported to Inspector Kyung. In Hye went crazy and begged Tae San to surrender, but Tae San told her that he could not trust anyone. When he was locked up in the police station, he was almost assassinated, so the best way to protect his life was to escape. Tae San decided to cross the border to the Philippines. Hearing that, In Hye said for the first time, "Soo Jin's father, please live." This sentence gave Tae San more motivation. Tae San hid in the bathroom, continued to disguise himself to leave the hospital. When he reached the lobby, Tae San turned back to look at his daughter, just in time to avoid the President Suk who just entered. This old fox is really evil. He found Soo Jin's hospital room and knew that she was Tae San's daughter. "Are you Tae San's daughter?" Sok asked her. "Yes, your father just came here to visit you," the girl obediently replied. After hearing this, President Sok knew that Tae San was still alive. When Sok and his subordinates left, they met police officers, Sung Woo and In Hye. Hearing police officer Sung Woo say he was going to visit Soo Jin, President Sok noticed Sung Woo, Sok and his secretary followed them all the way to the cafe. When he saw In Hye being so relieved, Sok was even more certain that Tae San was still alive. Not only Sok knew that Tae San was still alive, but Inspector Kyung and her teammates and the department head also knew through wiretapping In Hye's phone, so Inspector Kyung led the entire police team to capture Tae San. But because he was afraid that police officer Sung Woo would be affected by his personal feelings in his work, Kyung confiscated everyone's phones so that he could not contact them. They had to quickly stop the train to the Philippines before Chairman Sok's men could catch Tae San. After a whole day of driving, Tae San arrived at Busan port. Tae San left the truck and boarded the boat with the migrants. Tae San waited for the train to arrive, not knowing that above him, every move he made was being watched by Inspector Kyung. At this time, Tae San was led down to the deck of the boat and sat in a dark cellar. Tae San endured the pain to disinfect the wound. If this wound became infected, it would affect the bone marrow transplant for his daughter. When Tae San thought everything would go well for him, God took away that luck. Immediately after Inspector Kyung burst in, she pointed a gun and flashlight at Tae San's face. After many days on the run, Tae San was now in the hands of the police. After catching Tae San, Inspector Kyung returned the phone to his teammates. As soon as he turned on the phone, his colleague immediately called Song-woo to inform him that Tae San was still alive, causing Song-woo to freeze on the spot. On this side, two of President Seok's underlings had intentionally caused a car accident to cause a traffic jam on this road. The car carrying Tae San had to run onto the highway. That was also when they fell into President Seok's trap. Sure enough, while the police car was running, a truck going in the opposite direction almost hit them. Not only that, there was also a sniper in the trunk of the car. He shot a smoke gun at Inspector Kyung's car, causing the car to lose control and crash into another car. The person inside was blinded by a smoke bomb. Immediately after, Kim's underlings dragged the police out to control them. They broke the phone, cutting off their communication. Tae San couldn't let himself be killed like that. He tried to escape from the car, but Inspector Kyung stubbornly held him back. In the end, she was beaten unconscious. Tae San fell into Kim's hands. Tae San was dragged away by them before Inspector Kyung's helpless eyes. She quickly called for help from a car that had just arrived, then chased after Kim's group. After a while, the policemen all woke up. Policeman Song-woo also drove to the scene. From his colleague's words, Song-woo knew what had happened. As for the criminals, they knew that Inspector Kyung was following them, so they stopped the car to let her pass first. Meanwhile, they turned around and went in the opposite direction. No matter how hard Inspector Kyung tried to turn the car around and chase after them, she still lost track of them. Kyung got out of the car. She was not willing to let her efforts fall into someone else's hands. So Kyung tried to rack her brain to think about where they could take Tae San. After 5 seconds, she had the answer. At this time, they had taken Tae San to an abandoned warehouse. Tae San was tied to a chair. Opposite Tae San was the evil chairman Seok. Seok did not beat around the bush. He immediately asked Tae San where the camera was, just in time to avoid the President Seok who just entered. Only now did Tae San realize that the camera was not in his friend's hands. That meant there was still a chance to expose Seok's crimes. Tae San took the camera to ensure his own survival. If Chairman Seok killed him, the camera would also disappear. But Seok was not so easy to play with. Seok planned to torture Tae San's wound, making him unable to bear it and confess. When he saw that the wound was treated very well, Seok couldn't help but be suspicious. So Seok tore open Tae San's backpack and found a bunch of antibiotics. How could Tae San, a wanted criminal, go to the pharmacy to buy these things? So Chairman Seok suspected that someone was helping Tae San, and that person was also holding the camera, so Seok sent his men to investigate. On the other hand, outside the warehouse, Inspector Kyung had already found her way here. Unfortunately, she was discovered by one of her men. When Kyung ran away, she was surrounded by others, and with no other choice, she had to fight them. Although Kyung has a small body, she is very agile and flexible. Kyung wrestled 2 men alone. Just when she thought it was over, a madman suddenly rushed in and pushed Kyung against the board, knocking her unconscious on the spot. Inside, Tae San was also beaten until her mouth bled. This evil man constantly tortured Tae San's body. After beating him, Seok immediately called the congresswoman to inform her that he had captured both Inspector Kyung and Tae San. There is truly nothing more vicious than women. The chairman just wanted to send Inspector Kyung back and erase all traces here, but so he wanted to kill Kyung to shut her mouth. When Inspector Kyung woke up, she was facing the enemy who killed her father years ago. Kyung hated not being able to cut him to pieces and butcher him. Chairman Seok ordered someone to tape Inspector Kyung's mouth shut, then took her to see Tae San. Seok told Tae San that the person chasing Tae San was the daughter of the man Seok murdered years ago. After saying that, Seok gave Tae San the gun and gave Tae San 2 choices. 1 is to shoot Inspector Kyung to be free, 2 is to die with her. Yet Tae San was ready to take the gun and aim at Kyung. Kyung struggled and begged, but Tae San still fired. However, there were no bullets in the gun. Chairman Seok immediately scolded Tae San for his stupidity. Then Seok pointed the gun at Inspector Kyung. However, Tae San quickly shouted that if he shot Kyung, the whereabouts of the camera would also disappear. Tae San had predicted that this old fox would give him the gun without bullets. To prevent Seok from killing him, Tae San cleverly lied that before he was murdered, he had given the camera to someone else. Tae San had told that person that if there was no news of him for a few days, they would post it online. This made Chairman Seok wary and had to let Tae San go this time. Then Chairman Seok's subordinates took Tae San to another room. These guys are no match for Tae San. Taking advantage of their distraction, Tae San pulled their tie eyes, causing them to rush at each other. After just a few moves, Tae San defeated them all. Tae San did not run away. He knocked down the barrel to make a noise. Then Tae San threw a pair of shoes to create a fake scene, making them think Tae San had escaped. They were attracted by the noise and ran out to chase. When only Inspector Kyung was left, Tae San sneaked into the warehouse and stole Chairman Suk's car. Then Tae San crashed through the wall to save Inspector Kyung. Finally, both of them escaped together. Chairman Suk watched helplessly as they escaped. He went out and could only helplessly confront his stupid juniors. Police officer Sung Woo was also on the way to search for Inspector Kyung when Tae San's car passed by, making him irritated and immediately chased after him. But in just a moment, when trying to reach for the phone to call for police reinforcements, Sung Woo lost track of Tae San. Tae San ran into the tunnel. He apologized for Kyung's father's case years ago. Then Tae San untied Inspector Kyung and told her to get out of the car to change the driving position. When Kyung got out of the car, Tae San immediately stepped on the gas and drove away. Right now, ensuring life is the most important thing, so Tae San cannot trust his life to others. Inspector Kyung immediately ran after him. Luckily, she met police officer Sung Woo coming. Kyung quickly jumped into the car and told him to quickly chase after Tae San. But before the car could leave, they were approached by another car. They were forced to turn around and rush into the bushes to avoid it. Tae San had jumped onto the boat before Chairman Suk's subordinates arrived. Chairman Suk called to report the situation to Seo Hee. She was afraid that if those two escaped, her career as a scammer would be ruined, and the image that Seo Hee had spent so much time building would also collapse. As for Tae San, he thought that once he got on the boat, everything would be fine. But no, the gang of thugs still clung to him like hungry leeches. They used guns to stop the boat and then climbed up to control the passengers. A boy recognized Tae San as a wanted criminal. The boy shouted, forcing Tae San to jump out of the window and then dive into the sea to escape. There was a stupid guy who lowered his head into the water to search, so Tae San pulled him into the water and took over the boat. The other two ran over, but Tae San had already turned the throttle and ran away. They immediately got on the remaining canoe to chase after him. They chased and shot, but every shot missed. The two sides chased each other dramatically. The thugs sped forward to block Tae San, but unexpectedly, Tae San turned the throttle crazily and rushed forward, forcing them to turn the wheel to avoid, causing all three to lose momentum and fall into the water. Tae San took the opportunity to run away and climb ashore. At the hospital, Inspector Kyung had woken up. His colleague was still watching beside him. As soon as Kyung woke up, she asked if Tae San had been caught. When she knew that Tae San had not been caught, Kyung got out of bed and was about to return to the police station. At this time, Sung Woo had arrived. He dragged Kyung to the rooftop and asked if, in addition to Tae San's case, there was something else behind it that made Kyung work so hard, but Inspector Kyung did not say. Sung Woo kept asking about Tae San, causing Kyung to talk about the relationship between Sung Woo, Tae San, and In-hye. Kyung thought that Sung Woo shot Tae San out of jealousy, making Sung Woo unable to continue questioning her. Inspector Kyung also said that it was very possible that Tae San was wronged, which Sung Woo could not understand. A strange thing suddenly happened, as if God also wanted to help Tae San. When reporters interviewed the families that Tae San broke into, they all said he did not look like a criminal. Tae San was even very kind and did not harm them. The pregnant woman was still convinced that Tae San was innocent. When In-hye heard this news, she believed even more that her ex-boyfriend was innocent. In-hye recalled the time when she dated Tae San. Tae San was a quiet person but extremely kind, which made her heart flutter and fall in love with Tae San. On the other hand, Chairman Suk had prepared all the evidence and lawyers so that if he was arrested, he would deny it. So he was also wondering. 24 hours had passed and Suk had not been arrested, meaning that Inspector Kyung wanted to follow this case to the end to drag Seo-hee along. As for Inspector Kyung, the head of the department went to Kyung's house to blame him for not ordering the arrest of Chairman Suk. But Inspector Kyung knew that arresting him would be useless because he would definitely deny it. They had to find the poor camera to arrest Seo-hee too, then it would be worth the effort. At this time, Tae San was wandering around in the woods in pain. Tae San was exhausted and collapsed from being tortured all day yesterday. But Tae San could not close his eyes because his daughter was still waiting to be saved. Now Tae San had to quickly find the camera. Maybe he could turn over the wrongful case. Tae San remembered Ko-man's girlfriend. The camera was most likely in her hands. At this time, Ko-man's girlfriend was crying and deleting the photos taken with her lover. The best friend sitting next to her grabbed the camera and said she wanted to throw it away so that her friend would remember the old memories. But she did not know that inside there was a secret that the forces were fighting over. Back at the police station, Sung Woo also began to think about the possibility that Tae San was wronged. innocent. Sung-woo wondered why a murderer would shout that he was innocent, why a cold-blooded person was so popular with the people. On the other hand, he also secretly prayed for Tae San to survive. She hoped he would escape successfully for his life and for her daughters. The request indeed woke up Tae San, who was unconscious in the forest. His daughter appeared beside him once again, confirming that Tae San's current goal in life was her. The next morning, Tae San sneaked into people's houses to steal some rice, clothes and shoes. To escape successfully, his stomach needed to be full, his body needed to be warm, and his legs needed to be uninjured. Only then would he have the strength to endure. Then Tae San risked running to the gas station. He hid in the basement of a lumber truck to hitchhike another ride. So he, on this side, had agreed to run for mayor to get involved with the prosecutor's office in order to suppress Inspector Kyung. When they met, So he unexpectedly accused Kyung of being an accomplice to a fugitive criminal because a camera had captured her sitting in the same car with Tae San. The police chief had been informed of this case, and the police chief had told police officer Sung-woo. Sung-woo immediately ran out. So he wanted to publicly announce the removal of Inspector Kyung from his position in front of the prosecutor to avoid affecting the image of the prosecutor's office. This made Kyung stay silent out of resentment. The section chief also came to protect Kyung. Everyone in the police station knew that she went to catch a criminal and was controlled by him. But the chief prosecutor did not want to offend so he forced Inspector Kyung to withdraw from the case. When Kyung was most helpless, police officer Sung-woo appeared. Sung-woo was the son of the police chief, so the prosecutor had to respect him a bit. Sung-woo stood up to guarantee for Kyung that at that time she was chasing Tae San with Sung-woo, so the image of her being with the criminal was a composite. Outside, Inspector Kyung thanked police officer Sung-woo, but she still refused to tell him about her 8-year-old injustice. Because Sung-woo's father is the director, he is most likely related to the congressman, and so Sung-woo is angry and doesn't care anymore because he will investigate himself. Back to Tae San, he is already at his old rented room. Tae San waited for the police to leave the scene. Then Tae San sneaked into the house to find the camera. But first, Tae San had to clean up the blood of his unfortunate best friend, then take a shower to avoid infection of the wound. After changing into a proper set of clothes, Tae San started searching around the house for the camera, but couldn't find it. Tae San was sure that the camera was with Ko-man's girlfriend. Tae San had to gather some money and food and leave. When Tae San left, Inspector Kyung and his new colleagues ran over. At this time, Tae San was already at Ko-man's girlfriend's shop. They were watching Tae San's wanted news, so Tae San couldn't act rashly right now. Tae San had to call his ex-girlfriend to let her know he was okay, so she wouldn't worry. Then Tae San asked her to meet him at the mall and ask for In-hae to help him get something. In-hae agreed, but their conversation was overheard by Inspector Kyung and his teammates. They were sure that the thing was a digital camera, so Inspector Kyung immediately told the police team that they would set up a battle at 3 p.m. tomorrow to catch Tae San and get the camera. The next day, In-hae went to the mall. As promised, everywhere there were secret police stationed in every corner. Unexpectedly, In-hae's every move was being monitored by Kim. Kim had also sensed it and wanted to fight with the police. Kim had also discovered Tae San. It's true that you're not afraid of strong enemies. You're only afraid of teammates wearing jeans and having the brains of buffaloes. When In-hae arrived at the children's counter, the police officer in jeans told her that they were ambushing a fugitive and that it would be chaotic and told her to go home first. In-hae knew that they were going to arrest Tae San, so she quickly ran away. In-hae begged Tae San not to come here. On this side, Inspector Kyung also discovered Tae San, so she immediately informed her teammates to follow Tae San. Sung-woo saw his fiancée here and guessed that she was going to meet her ex-boyfriend. The police immediately went into emergency mode and even surrounded the shopping mall to control people coming in and out. Tae San saw that the situation was not good, so he retreated, and Kim also started to take action. In-hae received a call from Tae San and immediately returned to the hospital. Inside, the crowded police had already narrowed down the suspect, but when they caught the suspect taking off his mask, it was a completely different face. The real Tae San had already gone outside, and Kim was also following him closely behind. Thanks to the mirror of a passing car, Tae San discovered the stalker, and he had a knife ready to kill Tae San. Tae San knew he was very strong, and if he fought hand-to-hand, he would only lose. So Tae San decided to talk like two men, but Kim seemed not to be very friendly because Tae San did not bother to answer anything. Tae San said Tae San had to try to run away. Just when the assassin was about to catch Tae San, when crossing the street, Kim was hit by a car and was a beat slower. Tae San took that opportunity to run onto the bus. Kim also got on, but Tae San was more cunning. He successfully jumped out of the glass window and landed safely. Kim wanted to chase after him, but he remembered remembered his father's words not to act strangely in crowded places. To avoid being noticed, he had to give up. As soon as In-hai returned to the hospital, Tae San hugged her and hid in a corner. She pulled him to a safe place and talked. Tae San said that In-hai's phone was tapped, so Tae San's every move was easily discovered. At this time, police officer Sung-woo also came to the hospital to see In-hye. Sung-woo asked her why she lied to him and contacted her ex-boyfriend. In-hye was forced into a corner and could only tell Sung-woo that the person who donated bone marrow to her daughter was Tae San. If something happened to Tae San, Soo-jin would have a hard time living. On the other hand, Tae San had left but suddenly remembered the bow he was going to give his daughter. So Tae San returned to the hospital. That's why Tae San encountered police officer Sung-woo. Inside the hospital room, little Soo-jin was still marking each passing day with hope of living. In-hye quickly hugged police officer Sung-woo so Tae San could run away. Tae San also immediately ran away at full speed. Sung-woo was helpless because his fiancée treated him like that. He asked In-hye why she didn't trust him. If Sung-woo knew that Tae San donated bone marrow, he could protect Soo-jin's last hope. In-hye could only cry and apologize. Tae San just found out that In-hye's fiancé is police officer Sung-woo, who has been chasing him relentlessly. The humiliation and shame of In-hye's ex-girlfriend and new lover made Tae San cry. In-hye must be very ashamed. In-hye must have endured that shame. Years ago, because of Chairman Sok's threats, Tae San had to grit his teeth and endure. He swallowed his resentment so that Sok wouldn't hurt In-hye. Unexpectedly, that became an obstacle for In-hye now. On the other hand, Chairman Sok began to doubt whether Tae San really cared about that daughter. Even when he ran away, Tae San still secretly went to see his child. If that was true, it would be too easy for Sok. He would use the child to threaten Tae San again. Immediately after that, Sok sent his men to the hospital to investigate the child's surgery date. Here, Inspector Kyung asked In-hye to meet. Seeing that In-hye was still hesitant, Inspector Kyung admitted that she knew all about In-hye and Tae San's relationship. Kyung also believed that Tae San was wronged and assassinated, so she ran away. But now running away is the most dangerous thing. Kyung wanted In-hye to advise Tae San to turn himself in, because only the police can protect Tae San. As long as there is a camera, anyone who threatens Tae San will have to be wary. In-hye immediately asked what the camera was. Kyung did not explain much, but only emphasized that the police will protect Tae San until the day Soo-jin has surgery, so that both of them are safe. Kyung also revealed to In-hye that 8 years ago, Tae San was forced to take the blame for Chairman Sok to protect In-hye. Knowing this truth, In-hye was shocked and trembling. It turned out that he left her because he wanted to protect her. But for the past 8 years, In-hye has been resentful and has not let Tae San see her child. When Kyung returned, Sung-woo questioned her why she didn't tell him that Soo-jin's bone marrow donor was Tae San. Kyung explained that In-hye had to say it. If In-hye didn't want to say it, she wouldn't interfere. Police officer Sung-woo gradually realized the hidden story behind this story. Someone wanted to blame Tae San, and that person had kidnapped Inspector Kyung the day before. Because Sung-woo was the son of the chief, Kyung didn't trust him. But if Sung-woo was curious now, King would also reveal it to him. Those two people were Mrs. Seo-hee and Mr. So. Sung-woo gradually believed that Tae San was indeed wronged, so when he returned to the station, he ordered his subordinates to reinvestigate all documents related to the case. On the other hand, Chairman Sok also knew the date of Soo-jin's surgery. Sok said that the person who was always cowardly and obedient like Tae San was now so strong that it was because of his daughter. However, the day of Soo-jin's surgery was also the day of Sok and Seo-hee's fake exhibition. Therefore, the most urgent thing was to find the camera. Scene change. After investigating Mr. Sok, police officer Sung-woo immediately discovered the danger. Sok had been at the hospital where Soo-jin was treated, so Sung-woo immediately went to see this old man and told Sok that Soo-jin was his daughter, implying that he wanted to remind Sok not to even think about touching her. The old man smiled on the surface, but was actually hating him. Sok said bluntly that what he needed was the camera. Sung-woo remembered that Kyung had told him that the camera recorded the illicit relationship between Sok and Seo-hee. Only with the camera could he put them in jail. After warning Sok directly and calling him a fucking dog, Sung-woo returned to the police station. Sung-woo immediately called his subordinates to guard the hospital where Soo-jin and her mother were to ensure their safety. When In-hye just appeared, Sung-woo said he believed Tae San was innocent, so if Tae San appeared, In-hye should immediately advise him to turn himself in. Only then could the spinal cord be preserved for Soo-jin's surgery. Two people advised her like that, making In-hye begin to hesitate. Elsewhere, Seo-hee unexpectedly had a disabled son. After the auction was over, she would gather money and fly abroad with her son to live. But before that, if she wanted the auction to be successful, Seo-hee had to use her power to seize the market. After hearing this news, cameras. Chairman Seok immediately disagreed because they were in the same boat without telling him anything in advance. So he would definitely leave Seok behind and run away alone. So Mr. Seok ordered his subordinates to secretly investigate the day. So he planned to go abroad. Returning to Tae San, he continued to call In Hai to make an appointment to meet. Tae San thought that the hospital's landline was not being tapped, but unexpectedly, their conversation was still transferred to Inspector Kyung. The meeting place and time were all known to Kyung and her superiors. Kyung intended to inform the police, but Kyung suspected that the police station had an insider because all her plans were discovered by Kim. So this time, Kyung would only tell the police she trusted. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and In-hae followed the meeting point to the third compartment. The train was crowded, so In-hae did not realize that she was being followed by Sung-woo and another person outside. There was a team of prosecutors disguised as passengers, under the command of Inspector Dong and Kyung. Passengers got on and off the train in droves, but In-hae still stood there waiting for Tae San. At the second stop, she got off the train and immediately ran back on, trapping the police officer who was tailing her. At the third stop, In-hae immediately ran away, but Sung-woo followed closely. In-hae got in the taxi that Tae San had booked and left right in front of the police. Sung-woo also grabbed a passerby's car to chase after them. Inside the train station, the prosecutors who were tricked by In-hae could only look at each other. At this time, In-hae had arrived at Ko-man's girlfriend's shop. In-hae lied that she was the owner of the camera and now came to get it back. However, this girl was very tactless, borrowing someone else's camera but giving it to her best friend to throw away. The girl quickly called her best friend to ask where she threw the camera, then gave her best friend's address and phone number to In-hae. Before leaving, In-hae also followed Tae San's words and gave Ko-man's engagement ring to his girlfriend and fulfilled the unfortunate boy's last wish. Looking at the ring, In-hae suddenly remembered 8 years ago. On Tae San's birthday, she also gave him the ring with a letter. Tae San still kept the letter, and that memory is still imprinted in her heart. As soon as In-hae left the cafe, Sung-woo ran in and asked his girlfriend Ko-man what In-hae had said. At this time, In-hae was scheduled to be at the cafe to meet Tae San, but because she had to get the camera from the other girl, In-hae quickly borrowed the driver's phone to text Tae San. After that, In-hae was at the cafe and borrowed the customer's phone to call Tae San and tell him to follow her. Finally, the two successfully got in the car. At this time, In-hae informed Ko-man's girlfriend that she didn't have the camera. It turned out that her best friend had sold the camera to a student, and now they would go to that student's address. But Tae San asked In-hae to give him the address and stop the car because he didn't want her to be dragged into this. In-hae drove to a deserted place, but she refused to give the address because the student didn't get out of school until evening, so Tae San couldn't go around. Sitting in the car, Tae San apologized for making In-hae feel awkward in front of her fiancé yesterday. If Tae San knew Sung-woo was In-hae's fiancé, Tae San wouldn't have dared to ask her for help. But In-hae didn't care because if she didn't help, who else could Tae San ask for help? In-hae got out of the car and burst into tears. In-hae said she knew that he had to go to jail 8 years ago. If Tae San hadn't had to take the blame for someone else, wouldn't he have abandoned her and her child? Tae San didn't know what to say when she heard that. Tae San didn't want In-hae to misunderstand that she was a burden to him. On this side, because he lost track of In-hae, Sung-woo could only go to the hospital to talk to Soo-jin. Sung-woo told the girl about the love story between him and her mother, and at the same time, Sung-woo asked Soo-jin if he was qualified to be her father. It could be seen that Sung-woo truly loved In-hae and considered her child as his own. At this time, the unexpected happened. Ko-man's girlfriend listened to her best friend and said that the girl who came to claim the camera was an accomplice of Ko-man's killer, so the two of them called the police to inform them of the address where Tae San would get the camera. On this side, Tae San gave In-hae the bow tie he intended to give to his daughter. Then Tae San got out of the car and followed the address to find the student. Tae San had called him first, and the student was very cooperative in helping Tae San redeem the camera. Now that the camera was in Tae San's hands, In-hae was very happy, but they didn't know that the police chief was leading people to arrest Tae San. When In-hae heard the call between the student and the police chief, she was worried about Tae San. On this side, Tae San looked through the camera's items but couldn't find anything. Was the video deleted? While Tae San was frustrated, he was suddenly ambushed by Kim, who had sensed his way here. Tae San fought back but didn't fight back. Kim threw him to the ground and blatantly stole his camera. Then Kim didn't forget to strangle Tae San to silence him. While Tae San was about to die, In-hae chased after him. In-hae used a roadside billboard to fight the killer. When In-hae wanted to get the camera back, he accidentally grabbed her hair. Seeing his lover being treated like that, Tae San got got angry and kicked Kim, but Kim was very strong. Kim punched Tae San once and then kicked Tae San in the neck. In Hye hugged Kim's leg and begged, but this guy's face remained expressionless. Luckily, at the critical moment, Sungwoo drove after him, forcing Kim to run away. Tae San also wanted to run after him but was afraid that In Hye would be in trouble. Unexpectedly, Sungwoo allowed Tae San to escape because the police chief was about to come here. They would not believe Tae San was innocent. Tae San had no choice but to run away with his cowardice, and Sungwoo also pulled In Hye into the car and retreated. Tae San thought he had escaped the assassin, but no, Kim was waiting for him ahead. The fight resumed. Tae San drove towards him, then Kim jumped in. Kim then pried open Tae San's car door, forcing Tae San to drive back. Kim also approached step by step but only threatened for fun. He let Tae San run to a deserted place. Tae San slapped himself, blaming himself for being useless for losing the camera. In Hye returned to the hospital and encountered Inspector Kyung. When he knew that the camera was missing, Inspector Kyung was as devastated as Tae San. After In Hye returned to the hospital room with her daughter, In Hye discovered that the photo in her daughter's hand was a photo of her with her ex-boyfriend. Soo-jin woke up and immediately took back the photo. The innocent girl said that her mother tore and threw away the photo, so she took it and repasted it, and now it's hers. It turns out that Soo-jin longed to see her biological father so much, but before that, when she had the chance, she forbade the father and daughter from meeting. In Hye was not angry, but she returned the gift Tae San gave her daughter. In another scene, the camera fell into the hands of old man Sok. Sok ordered that Tae San's life be taken and Kyung be dealt with. Sok's auction must be completed. Kyung lost the camera, so now she focused all her mind on the charity auction because she was sure that there was a problem with this auction. The reason Kyung was not too worried about the camera was because this data needed to scan her iris to see the content inside. However, Kyung did not know that Chairman Seo had hired a professional coder to take the camera's hardware and put it into another device. Sure enough, Seok had seen the conversation between her and Mrs. Seo-hee. On the other hand, Tae San called Kyung. He asked her to meet secretly. A moment later, Kyung was at the meeting place. In front of her was Tae San. Tae San asked her what kind of relationship Mi-suk had with Mr. Seok. Why did Seok kill Mi-suk and then blame him? What was in that camera? Kyung only said that inside the camera was evidence to accuse Mr. Seok. Then Kyung thanked Tae San for saving her the day before. To repay her, Kyung let Tae San wear a wig and glasses to disguise herself as her friend. Then Kyung led Tae San into her house, intending to invite him to a decent meal. When Tae San saw Kyung's 8-year investigation board, she was extremely surprised. For the past 8 years, she had always lived in hatred. On the other hand, Chairman Seo brought the camera and the chip to Mrs. Seo. She did not bother to look at the content inside and immediately destroyed the chip. Back to Tae San. He hasn't had a proper meal in days, so Tae San is trying his best to eat. Then Tae San shows Kyung a portrait of the man who has been chasing Tae San for the past few days. He's also the one who stabbed Kyung that day. Tae San said that day was the day the test results came out from the hospital, so he was in a hurry. When Mi-suk came to give him the camera, Tae San just conveniently put it in his pocket. After returning from the hospital, Tae San was tricked into going to the warehouse. When Tae San woke up, Mi-suk was already killed. Now if they want to catch Seo, they can only let him catch Tae San first. At this time, Seok's men have also split up into different areas. They look for Tae San among the homeless and even follow Kyung. Kyung goes to see police officer Sungwoo to tell him that there is definitely an insider in the police station. So Kyung and Tae San made a plan, which was that would go and invite the rest of the team to go drinking. Then, she pretended to have a stomachache and ran to the bathroom. As soon as Kyung left, her phone rang. There were 2 or 3 calls and messages. Inspector Kyung would run out and pretend to be panicked to answer the phone. The person on the other end of the line tried to shout Tae San's name loudly to attract attention. If one of the 3 policemen was an insider, they would definitely be curious. Then Kyung continued to run into the bathroom. She waited for the curious person to follow. Kyung deliberately talked loudly on the phone about Tae San turning himself in. Then Kyung returned to the table and used the excuse of having something to do at home to go home first. Kyung's accomplices sitting at the opposite table already knew who was following her. At this time, the news of Tae San turning himself in reached Chairman Seo. Seok immediately ordered Kim to kill the person to silence him, not letting Tae San fall into the hands of the police. Seok's subordinates also followed Kyung and her prosecutor's office. Kim had arrived at the meeting place in advance to lie in wait, but Kim did not know that he was gradually entering Tae San and Kyung's battleground because the police and prosecutors were lying in wait everywhere in the building. Tae San followed the plan, arriving at the meeting place at exactly 5 o'clock. Kim was just waiting to shoot and make Tae San collapse. Inspector Kyung immediately shouted Tae San's name, which was also the team's signal to act. Everyone immediately rushed out to catch Kim. He thought he was smart, using a drone to move the rifle away, and that would be the end of it. But who would have thought that as soon as Kim went out the main door to escape, he was shot with several tranquilizers by the ambushing police and passed out on the spot. At this time, little Soo-jin was still full of hope. She crossed out each day she wanted to see her father. On this side, Tae San, wearing a bulletproof vest, also opened his eyes. Kim was already in Inspector Kyung's arms. Chairman Seok called Kim to ask about the situation. As soon as he heard Kim's voice, Seok hung up in fear. Meanwhile, Tae San was running away from Sung-woo's pursuit. Sung-woo didn't actually want to put Tae San in jail. He just wanted to ask him something. Only when he heard the name of his daughter did Tae San reveal himself. On this side, after falling into the hands of the police, Kim didn't say a word. When taking his fingerprints, Kyung was surprised because he didn't have Korean nationality, so Kyung didn't have the right to arrest him, but had to contact the foreign police to arrest him. After talking to Tae San, Sung-woo angrily rushed into the house and grabbed Seok because he had taken the camera and wanted to kill someone. It turned out that in order to save Soo-jin, Sung-woo had agreed with Seok to bring the camera back to him. Otherwise, Seok would kill Tae San and Soo-jin. So when he ran into Ko-man's girlfriend's shop, Sung-woo asked about the camera. Then Sung-woo went out and texted Seok the address. But Sung-woo didn't expect that he had fallen into Seok's trap. Seok only made empty promises and didn't keep them. Seok even threatened Sung-woo with this. If In-hye knew that you were the one who revealed the camera's location to me, how would she react? You should handle the situation yourself. On the other hand, Kim's lawyer came to present his identification papers. Kim was a Frenchman who came to Korea to study Korean and take photos. Moreover, Kim didn't have a gun to kill anyone and didn't find Tae San's body, so the police couldn't charge him. The phone that contacted Chairman Seok was picked up by Kim. With just a few simple lies, Kim was released, leaving Inspector Kyung helpless. This time, the police considered their efforts in vain, so she had to return home to inform Tae San that the mission had failed. This guy was really too thoughtful. He was a foreigner, so it was even harder to act. Tae San had no choice but to come up with another plan to get the camera back because he knew that Mr. Seok was the one who had to know other people's secrets. Seok would not destroy the camera because inside there was evidence to incriminate both him and Mrs. So-hee. If So-hee dared to betray him, there was something to save her life. Tae San planned to go to Seok's house to find the camera. First, Tae San had to understand the structure of that place, so Tae San had to find someone who had been there to help, none other than Old Man Han. But Tae San's figure was seen by someone and reported to the boss. Seok immediately sent him to check. When he arrived, it was too late. Tae San had left first. Seok could only vent his anger on his juniors at the pawn shop. The two subordinates were scared, so they told about Chairman Seok and Mi-suk's death, but they did not know that Tae San had installed a listening device. The next morning, Tae San drove the car. Kyung lent him to meet Mr. Han. The two went to a small restaurant to eat. Then they started discussing the layout of Mr. Seok's house and discovered that they used a fireplace on the wall to hide the basement door. In another scene, both Inspector Dong and Police Sung-woo appeared in front of Mi-suk's house. There was a car parked there for a long time. Fortunately, the wife of the car owner who lived nearby showed them the dash cam. In the video, Seok's car appeared in front of Mi-suk's house on the day she was murdered. Immediately after, Kyung led people to publicly arrest Chairman Seok. So-hee also immediately received a phone call with the news. She suddenly feared that Seok would drag her to jail with him. Sitting in front of the interrogation table, although watching the video of his car parked in front of Mi-suk's house, Seok knew that Lee did not have a close-up of him entering the house, so he was still happy. Tae San also knew that Seok was arrested. He and Mr. Han had their tools ready to break into Chairman Seok's house. Mr. Han pretended to be a scrap metal buyer, while Tae San hid in a pile of papers to fool the guards. Inspector Kyung on this side was also trying to hold Seok back. Tae San successfully broke into Seok's yard. Then he used a special machine. Tae San silently drilled and successfully opened the doorknob. But inside, Tae San encountered Seok again with Kim beside him. Seok was pleased because Tae San was fooled by him. He told Tae San that when Kyung interrogated him, he was called to see the head of the department. The head of the department wanted Kyung to release Seok first, and then asked the judge for an arrest warrant. Otherwise, Kyung would be sued by him for illegal arrest. At the same time, Mrs. So-hee came to find the judge. Based on her popularity, the judge believed that Chairman Seok really went to dinner with her that day. When Kyung returned to the room, Seok was nowhere to be seen. It turns out that the arrest warrant was also rejected by the judge, so Seok was released. Inspector Kyung wanted to immediately contact Tae San to stop the action, but she called, but he did not answer. Kyung's car was also blocked by another car. so she was forced to take a taxi. Unexpectedly, this taxi was also bribed. In the middle of the road, the taxi broke down, so Tae San fell into the hands of Chairman Seok. Tae San wanted to run away but was easily controlled by Kim. Tae San begged old man Seok not to kill him because in just 3 days he would donate bone marrow to his daughter. At that time, Seok could torture him however he wanted. Tae San even hugged Seok's leg and begged so, but Seok was still heartless and ordered Kim to cover Tae San with anesthetic, causing Tae San to pass out. On this side, Mr. Han was outside for a long time and did not receive Tae San's call, so he got out of the car to check. Only then did Mr. Han know that Tae San had been beaten unconscious by Kim and locked in the trunk of the car. When Mr. Han pulled the paper cart past, he deliberately threw the knife inside so that Tae San could escape. But before Tae San could wake up, Kim had arrived. He opened the trunk and took the knife into the elevator. Kim intended to go to the rooftop to create a crime scene by jumping from the building. Miss Han was still driving behind and knew about this intention. Miss Han immediately called the police to report that someone wanted to jump from the pool roof. At the same time, Kim untied the ropes and tried to push Tae San down the stairs, but Tae San used all his strength to fight him. Tae San took his weapon pen, but Tae San was still controlled by Kim and broke his arm, causing him to drop the weapon. Tae San's will to live suddenly flared up. He strangled Kim and Kim strangled him. The two strangled each other, but the strength of a father was still overwhelming. Tae San strangled Kim until he fainted, but unexpectedly he played a trick. Kim waited for Tae San to lose his guard and dragged him to the edge of the rooftop. Tae San tried to hold Kim's hand and beg but failed. Luckily, Old Man Han appeared. When he saw Kim, he suddenly called him his son. Taking the opportunity when Kim turned back to look at the old man, Tae San kicked him and dragged the old man running after him. Because the mission failed, Kim was slapped several times by Chairman Seok, making him dizzy. However, he still listened and absolutely did not fight back or defend himself. On the other hand, police officer Sung-woo confessed to In-hai that the camera incident was because he revealed the location to Seok. Because Sung-woo trusted the wrong person, he believed Seok would not kill Tae San if he had the camera, but now Sung-woo realized that he was too naive. In the hospital room, because he could not see his mother, Soo-jin took her mother's phone and opened it to see. As soon as she saw the words Tae San, she knew it was her father, so she immediately called him. Receiving In-hai's phone call, Tae San was extremely worried, but when he heard his daughter's voice, he felt much more relieved. After Tae San finished talking to his daughter, Mr. Han also woke up. Miss Han told Tae San that he had lost a son before. He looked very much like the current killer, Kim, so he couldn't leave but had to stay to confirm more. Back to In-hai. Because he couldn't control Tae San, Mr. Seok changed his target to In-hai. Seok went to the shop to scare In-hai. When In-hai went out to text for help, she was drugged and taken away by a stranger. On this side, Tae San threw a smoke bomb into the pawn shop, causing 2 of his juniors to choke and run away. Then Tae San immediately sneaked in and took away the recorder from earlier. Sung-woo was informed of In-hai's kidnapping. The remaining police officers in charge of protecting In-hai also frantically searched for her. After receiving the news, Kyung immediately informed Tae San. Before Tae San could cry, In-hai called him and showed him the scene of her being tied up. Tae San's anger immediately exploded. On the other end of the phone line, a man's voice threatened Tae San to go to the meeting place alone first. Otherwise, In-hye would be dealt with. The person holding the phone was Kim. Kim then opened the tape for In-hai to talk. In-hai immediately ordered Tae San not to come here. Otherwise, he could be in danger and his daughter's life would be difficult to keep. When the phone was turned off, Tae San went crazy between 2 choices. One was the person he loved the most, and the other was his pitiful daughter. Who should Tae San choose? After calming down, Tae San knew for sure that this matter would be resolved. Tae San called Kyung to inform her that In-hai had been kidnapped. Now Tae San would send Kyung the video of the call just now for her to see. In In-hai's pupils was the face of the killer. Kyung quickly worked and discovered that the kidnapper was Kim. Tae San remembered that 2 workers had taken a photo of Kim's license plate before, so he immediately called Sung-woo to investigate. They used the technology to enlarge and blur the license plate. What appeared before his eyes was a French car. The address was at a nearby photo studio. Police Sung-woo immediately went there. As for Tae San, to ensure In-hai's safety, he followed Kim's instructions to drive to the meeting point. Tae San had to get in the car he had prepared in advance, and he had to drive along the route set in the car. On this side, to get into the hospital, Chairman Seok had someone give the security guards and nurses drinks with sleeping pills. They were all fast asleep in no time, so Seok could freely enter and exit the hospital without fear of being seen. As for the camera camera, he would handle it later. Seok went to see little Soo-jin, who didn't know that this was a devil, so she happily talked to him. Seok said he would take Soo-jin to see her father, so he successfully tricked her out. Meanwhile, Tae San gradually realized the plot of these people. They kidnapped In-hae to lure the police out of the hospital to arrest Soo-jin. Tae San immediately turned the car in the opposite direction. At this time, Seung-woo, in order to avoid Mr. Seok's surveillance, took the shipper's car and drove out. At the hospital, Soo-jin suddenly remembered her father's words that she could only stay with her mother, that she could not go with strangers, so Soo-jin quickly dropped her slippers and asked Mr. Seok to pick them up. Taking advantage of the opportunity when he went to pick up the slippers, Soo-jin ran into the elevator to the upper floor. She tried to wake the doctor up but failed. Seeing that something was wrong, Soo-jin ran away again, but Seok chased to where Soo-jin was hiding. He was also worried that Soo-jin would easily get infected because she had left the sterile room for too long, but Soo-jin was very smart. She kept changing her hiding place to avoid being caught. But when Soo-jin hid in the closet, the door was left ajar, helping Mr. Seok realize. At this time, Tae San rushed to the hospital in time to save his daughter. Seeing the doctors and nurses all fainted and his daughter's shoe on the floor, he knew something bad had happened. Upstairs, when Mr. Seok was about to catch Soo-jin, Tae San ran over and shouted his daughter's name, forcing Seok to temporarily hide. Seeing her father, Soo-jin immediately ran out. Tae San was worried that he would infect her, so he asked her daughter to quickly go into the sterile room. She obediently followed. Right after that, Tae San saw Seok fleeing back. Kyung also ran over. Tae San quickly handed his daughter over to Kyung and angrily chased after that scumbag. Without Kim by his side to protect him, Seok was just an old man, so when Tae San chased him, he had to run away. When Seok ran to the rooftop and had no way to escape, Seok had to turn to fight Tae San. He was weak, so Tae San punched him a few times and pushed him to the edge of the railing. However, Tae San did not kill Seok because doing so would be too easy for him. Tae San wanted to let him go to jail, losing his freedom like he had done to others. The guy Seok, who had just escaped death, teased Tae San that he was weak and did not dare to kill. Today, Tae San forgave him. It would be the most stupid decision of Tae San's life. In another scene, Seung-woo found the photo studio where In-hae was locked up. There were only two underlings standing outside guarding the door. He easily handled them. One thug wanted to use a knife, but they saw that they could not fight with a gun, so they had to run away. Seung-woo successfully went inside and saved the trembling Ngemkermas. In-hae, Kyung called Tae San to let him know that In-hae was safe. She also arranged for Tae San to go into the sterile room to talk to her daughter. Her smile was still as sweet, pure and clear as ever. Soo-jin was extremely happy to see her biological father again. After that, they took the time to tell each other happy stories. Before leaving, Tae San burst into tears. He had a daughter but had to secretly meet her like this. In the hospital lobby, Seung-woo took In-hae to see his daughter. Seeing that In-hae was safe, Tae San was relieved. Soo-jin excitedly told her mother that thanks to her father, the bad guy couldn't catch her. After meeting her daughter, In-hae was relieved to see Tae San. She forgave him for abandoning her and her mother for the past 8 years. Then, In-hae made an appointment to meet Tae San again 3 days later to donate bone marrow to her daughter. At that time, she agreed to let the two father and daughter meet. Tae San promised that he would be there on time that day. Then, Tae San let Kyung listen to the recording he had attached to the pawn shop, recording the conversation between his old juniors. But this alone was not enough to catch old Seo. Tae San continued to sneak into Seo-hee's house. Every 5 minutes at exactly 12 o'clock, she would turn off all the lights, so Tae San sneaked in through the back door. Behind was a large garden. She was enjoying a happy life and not living in a poor rented house like people often rumored. At Mr. Seok's house, just as Miss Han said, his house had a secret tunnel. Seok went down to the basement to open the safe and take out some money, intending to send someone to assassinate Tae San again. On the other hand, Tae San showed Mr. Han the background information that the police had found about Kim. Kim was born in 1985. He was in the French Foreign Legion, so he had French nationality. Mr. Han recounted that he used to live by being an assassin, but he didn't want his son to be like that. So Han gave his son a fountain pen with his son's name engraved on it. One day, his son suddenly disappeared. But the strange thing was that no one came to demand ransom. Just like that, Han lost his son, and the old man still has the pen. Scene change. Tae San called Seok's company. Tae San let Seok listen to the recording of his men, saying that he was the one who killed Mi-soo. If things went badly, Seok planned to send one of the three to jail instead. But now that the recording was in Tae San's hands, he couldn't continue that move. Then Tae San called Seok's man, Hwang. He said that when I was arrested at Seok's house, Seok said he would kill me and then blame Hwang for going to jail instead. This made Hwang start to be afraid. afraid. Soon after, Hwang was called back by Mr. Sok, but Soik wasn't angry and even gave Hwang a large sum of money to kill Tae San. Tae San knew this move in advance, so when Hwang came, he recounted Sok's every word of seduction without missing a word. Then Tae San let Hwang listen to this recording he had given to Mr. Sok. That old man just wanted to take advantage of Hwang one last time before throwing it away. Hearing that, Hwang was stunned on the spot. He realized he was too stupid. In another scene, the police team also gradually realized the strange points in Tae San's case. The way the killer killed Mi-suk and Komon committed the crime was different. One was an amateur and the other was a professional. The knife found was produced in a craft workshop. The special thing was that the workshop produced each knife with a separate handle for each customer. Immediately, Sung-woo led his teammates to Sok's bar. He asked the staff there if they saw the old man carrying this knife, but everyone was afraid of being implicated, so they shook their heads. On the other hand, the two old foxes met again, but this time not to discuss, but to control each other. Mr. Sok said he knew the day Miss Seo-hee would go abroad. Surely when she left, if anything happened, he would have to bear it all alone. So Sok warned Seo-hee not to leave Korea until he killed Tae San and Kyung. This made Seo-hee furious. Sok told Seo-hee to pull him out of Mi-suk's case because the police were targeting him. If Sok died, Seo-hee and her disabled son would not be able to live. Since they were on the same boat, even if Seo-hee was angry, she had to keep her mouth shut and help Sok. On this side, Kyung and Tae San also had their own plans. Mr. Han was still trying to contact his son, but Kim was indifferent and didn't care. On this side, although Tae San was a wanted criminal, he just had to walk straight and wear a suit so no one would recognize him. Tae San just went straight to Seo-hee's office. When she saw Tae San, she was both surprised and amazed. Tae San showed Seo-hee the pictures of her luxurious life in her apartment, making Seo-hee not dare to call the police. But to make her listen to him, Tae San brought out Seo-hee's house registration. It belonged to a company called Venus, and the photo studio that kidnapped Henempate in Hai was also under the management of that company. Venus was the parent company of the company that President Seok managed. If this matter spread online, he would drag Seo-hee along with it. With these things, Seo-hee could not help but listen to Tae San. Tae San began to explain his plan. Soon, Tae San and Kyung would arrest So. Now, as long as Seo-hee sat still and did not intervene, Tae San would destroy all these documents, and if Seo-hee did the opposite, he would post it online for his daughter's sake to confront Seo-hee directly. By then, she might not be arrested, but it would still affect her bid for mayor, so she joined hands to help Tae San. This scene was captured by Kyung in the opposite building. Because the plan was successful, Tae San went out to meet Kyung. Tae San knew that the cunning Seo-hee did not easily cooperate with the enemy. Indeed, she brought the evidence that Tae San gave to So. Seeing that, he said that he would not be easily caught. So intended to blame Hwang for the crime. This was also what Tae San wanted. He knew that Hwang was a loyal person and would not easily betray So. But if Hwang knew that Sok betrayed him, he would resentfully reveal everything to Mr. Sok's house. Sok suspected that Tae San and Kyung arranged this, but the secretary reported that Kyung did not leave the apartment because they did not know that she was wearing a shipper's outfit and sneaking out. On this side, Sung-woo did not sit still either. He extracted the camera at the hospital and went to a club. Sung-woo quickly found the girl who distributed the sleeping pills. Sitting in front of the interrogation table, the girl trembled and said that Hwang had asked her to deliver drinks, but she really didn't know that there were sleeping pills in them. After getting the statement, her colleagues also ran in to report that the knife they found from Hwang was the same as the one used in the crime. Hwang was now being coaxed by Sok to blame his junior because the police had found a knife with a custom-made handle. Sok told Hwang to give his knife to his junior, then blame all the blame on him. Hwang was quickly convinced by Mr. Sok. Hwang immediately called his junior to meet, but when he drove away, he discovered Tae San sitting inside. Tae San told him that Mr. Sok had also used those words to convince his junior. Sok's purpose was to make the two fight each other. Tae San also told him that the girl at the bar had revealed his name, causing Hwang to officially collapse. Tae San was just waiting for that to lure him to his side. If Hwang agrees to give up and join his side, Tae San will be the one to testify that he did not kill Mi-suk. To make Hwang more confident, Tae San allows Hwang to drive to the meeting place of his juniors. Tae San wants to show Hwang the scene where the junior listened to Sok, and he is calling the police to arrest Hwang. Hwang is now scared. To save himself, he took out Sok's bloody shirt and sent it to the police station. At the same time, Hwang tells Sung-woo that he only sent evidence and did not come out as a witness because he was afraid of Mr. Sok's revenge. Tae San is extremely happy when he finds out. He knows that the day of his exoneration is not far away. The evidence shirt is in the hands of the captain captain and Kyung. Returning to Kim, he has prepared guns and bullets, ready to kill Tae San. But Kim receives a message from Mr. Han. Mr. Han sends Kim a picture of him and Kim when they were young, with a message reminding him that I gave you a pen to write, not to make a knife. However, Kim still showed no emotion. On this side, when the police had enough evidence to arrest So, he was nowhere to be found. At this time, Sok had already brought money and property to escape. Before that, Sok had run to ask for help from Mrs. So Hee. They would still let the auction take place and then divide the money before going their separate ways. At this time, the TV reported that the police had proven Tae San innocent. The real murderer of Mi Suk was Chairman Sok, and now he became a wanted criminal. The secretary and Kim were still by his side. The secretary reminded Sok to get on the train to escape tonight, but he was not willing. Sok wanted to kill Tae San before 9 o'clock tomorrow. That was when Sujin's surgery would be performed. Tae San understood that Sok's evil intentions would not give up on him, so he begged the doctor to do the surgery today. Meanwhile, Inspector Du and the secretary posted a photo of Tae San and Mrs. So Hee working together. Immediately, the prosecutor's office and the people were extremely confused. The reporters surrounded Miss So Hee's office. Of course, she denied it and said that it was a Photoshop photo, but this also made her not dare to touch the matter of arresting Mr. Sok anymore. Until now, the spy in the police station has just revealed himself. He was the one who leaked important information to Mr. Sok. Now, he is also assigned to guard the hospital. The spy told Mr. Sok that this was the last report. At the same time, he demanded 10 billion for the new information. Knowing that this news was related to Sujin's surgery, Mr. Sok immediately agreed. The secretary brought money to give to the spy and brought back news of the surgery that would take place at 10 o'clock tonight. Sok immediately thought of a plan to break into the hospital. Kim would help him kill Tae San himself. While Tae San was lying on the hospital bed, Mr. Sok also set off. Before he left, Kim asked a hidden question. Dad, who am I really? It turned out that even though he didn't show any emotion, Kim's mind had begun to have doubts. On this side, the police were on duty at the hospital, but it seemed that Mr. Sok's spy had been in the camera room. He texted him that the car had passed the camera. Then Kim and Mr. Sok pretended to be cleaning staff and dispersed to different places. There were so many police, but they still let Kim break in. Finally, Mr. Sok entered Tae San's operating room. On this side, Kim went into another room in case Tae San was brought into this room. But surprisingly, the person lying on the operating table was Mr. Han. Miss Han reminded his son that Kim had not called him dad in the past, but he had given Han the nickname General. Kim was a bit shaken at this time, but because he had lost his memory, he did not recognize his father until Han took the pen cap from Kim's shirt pocket. Then he put it on his pen body. When Kim saw that it fit, Kim's memory gradually returned. The knife in Kim's hand also fell off. At this time, Mr. Sok was tricked because the person lying on the operating table was actually a mannequin. Going back to the day before, Tae San knew Mr. Sok was not simple. Kyung also told Tae San about the spy at the police station. The spy, when discovered and advised by his teammates, also changed. He also promised to help them trick Mr. Sok into a trap. Even the employee working in the camera room followed the good side to act for fun. But when the police stormed into the hospital room, Sok escaped up the ventilation pipe. Sok successfully drove out and escaped before Tae San's eyes. Tae San immediately chased after him and climbed into Sok's car to a junkyard. Tae San immediately grabbed the bastard's collar to prevent him from escaping. The two of them fought, but Sok still jumped into the car and escaped. Tae San drove a nearby car to chase after him, the two of them running close together. Sok relied on his bigger car to deliberately hit Tae San into a pile of scrap. Tae San also returned the favor with a sudden stab from the side. When Tae San got out of the car, he was hiding nearby, but when Sok was looked down upon by Tae San, he couldn't stand the provocation and showed up with a stick. Tae San increased his strength by 1,000%. He used his hand to block the stick and broke it, then rushed up and kicked the old man, breaking his tooth. Because of that bastard, Tae San lost 8 years with his wife and children. Tae San continuously threw punches at him to vent his anger. Old strength couldn't beat young strength, so after being beaten, Sok was tied up by Tae San. But unexpectedly, a fire broke out from the car oil after the collision. When Tae San went to meet the police and told them where to arrest that bastard, a loud explosion startled everyone. However, the surgery for his daughter was the most important thing, so Kyung quickly drove Tae San home. In-hae hugged Tae San as soon as she saw him, afraid that if something happened to him, her daughter would not be able to survive. This scene was seen by Song-woo, who came later. If he said he was not heartbroken, it would be a lie. On the other hand, Mrs. So-hee was still leisurely discussing with the experts about the auction, and suddenly So-hee received a phone call informing her that Mr. Sok had been arrested. At this time, Sok had half of his face burned and was being being taken to the hospital. That was the karma that God made him pay for his evil deeds. Tae San was now comfortably anesthetized for the bone marrow extraction surgery. After a long while, he faintly regained consciousness. Inspector Kyung was by his side, accompanying him. She told Tae San that Hwang had confessed and told everything. The murderer who killed her father 8 years ago was Mr. Sok, so Tae San's prison record had been cleared. Tae San didn't need to feel ashamed to go visit his daughter. Finally, Soo-jin had a bone marrow transplant. At the same time, the auction was taking place. A series of fake antiques were priced sky high by everyone. The greedy So-hee was extremely happy. She and Mr. Sok's secretary thought they would get all the money, but as soon as the auction ended and the money was in their hands were handcuffed. Both were arrested at the same time. So-hee was not willing to endure the past humiliation. She planned to take medicine to end this humiliation, but Kyung showed her a video containing her son's image. The boy was disabled but loved his mother very much. Kyung took the opportunity to snatch the poison pill back, while So-hee shed tears of despair and regret. The trial took place again. The real culprit was brought to light. The wronged person was exonerated by the law. So for 8 years, the injustice and injustice were cleared up. The wronged people demanded justice for themselves. Soo-jin, who received Tae San's marrow, was given a new life. Tae San kept his promise to return the teddy bear to his daughter when she recovered. The first time he touched his daughter up close, Tae San felt how noble his fatherly mission was. Kyung, who was demanding justice for her father, also felt relieved. She was finally able to tear off the investigation board that had followed her for so many years. Sok on this side had his face burned, and his eyes were blind. So-hee was also locked in a dark prison. As for Kim, after finding his biological father, he was also locked in prison to be punished. But Kim accepted that punishment because only then would he have a chance to start his life over. The day Soo-jin was discharged from the hospital, Sung-woo brought a gift to give her. Sung-woo took Soo-jin's hand to meet his biological father. Because he truly loved In-hae, Sung-woo wanted them to be happy. After that, the three of Soo-jin spent time together. They were filled with joy and laughter of a complete family. At night, Soo-jin finally got her wish to sleep with her parents. Waiting for her to fall asleep, In-hae and Tae San had the chance to talk together. In the past, they loved each other very much, but now it was different. Tae San did not want to be a stumbling block in In-hae's new life. Tae San knew Sung-woo was a very good person. He also had a position and a job enough to give mother and child a comfortable life. Soo-jin inside heard everything, but she just cried silently. She also understood her father's suffering, but In-hae went to see Sung-woo to express that she could not be with him because Sung-woo was more like a benefactor to In-hae than a love. Police officer Sung-woo understood her, so he did not blame her. Sung-woo sincerely wished In-hae happiness. In-hae also understood that she needed to give Tae San time to regain her spirit, and he needed to find his true value. So no matter how long Tae San is gone, she and Soo-jin will wait for him. The drama ends here. Thank you for watching, goodbye, and see you again.